My latest film, A Question of Justice, began about a year and a half ago. I describe my film as a human rights film and as a film about activism. When I first began making A Question of Justice, I really didn't know exactly where I was going. I just had this desire to be able to communicate to people and to try to bring out some of these stories. And with this in mind, I went back to my country and tried to find out how would I be able to make a documentary that deal with death and what would be the subject. I mean, how will it transform itself? What will I talk about? How did the people take this death that happens daily in Venezuela? Did they just bury the person and forget about it? Did they go on and thought that, you know, the system is injustice, therefore there is nothing we can do? I was able to find different stories that maybe were even more dramatic as the one you might see in this film. But the important thing was not just the story itself, but the capacity of the people that I found to be able to express it, the people who were courageous enough to say, yes, I understand what you want to do and I am ready. I think my story is important. It's very painful and it would be painful to talk about it. For instance, the story of Raquel, a mother whose son was killed by the police. This is a story that happens everywhere. It happened in New York, it happens in Europe, it happens in Latin America. In finding justice for her son, she discovers a part of herself as a woman she had never discovered before. She's a writer, she's a poet.
Mujeres que lloran su dolor y descubren sus penas entre risas y sueños de esperanza. Mujeres que perdonan con sentimiento, sin borrar el dolor, la tristeza y el recuerdo de sus muertos.
And this is an aspect that gives the film a little more opening. Raquel can come out of her nest where she has been put by our society for so many years, discover herself and fights and puts her face out and tells the police who killed their children that this shouldn't happen again. Another of the stories of the film that the film portrays is the story of a young man killed in a protest march. This was supposed to be a peaceful march in which chaos happened. Many people were killed and injured. This was a crime that has never developed. We don't know who killed these people. Some people say it was the government, some people say it was the opposition. The point is, a young man died. My focus on this story was not just the fact that who killed the people, because that is a judicial thing that the families themselves are trying to find out. But I wanted to see more what was the human aspect behind this.
Le puse Jesús por Jesucristo y Mohammed porque tonterías mías, cosas de madre todavía enamorada, tonta que soy.
A man and a woman who had been divorced, whose child was killed, all of a sudden are reunited to search for the justice that they believe they should have.
Nos enamoramos, resultado tuvimos a Jesús el 31 de enero del 1984.
In this film, what I wanted to do is try to reach out and try to differentiate and see other communities, how death affects different people in different areas. And this took me to La Guajira, an indigenous area between Venezuela and Colombia, where there is a group of Indians, natives from that land, that have never really had any rights in any governments throughout the history of Venezuela. I was surprised to find not only the poverty of a group of proud people, but the situation in which they live. I found a nightmare. 50 children dying monthly of starvation. They were a minority within a minority.
Los niños aquí que desnutrirse, eso es de hambre. El problema no sería tanto los medicamentos, sino darle la alimentación que ellos necesitan para que ellos no lleguen a ese estado de desnutrición.
Alexis, she has two kind of work to make understand what the needs of her people are to the rest of the country, and at the same time she has to make her people understand what is the process that she's making. It's a double culture kind of system in which she has to trespass frontiers, literally, between one culture and the other. What to do with all this information? What I wanted to present with this work is to show and to provide information about a group of people that are working within a geographical area called Venezuela, a group of people that have been fighting to achieve what they think is just. People die every day, here and there, from the police, from the government, it doesn't matter where. The important thing is that we see how people organize themselves and how people come out of their cocoon to try to make a statement, to try to fight. The fact that you see them honestly telling you about their pain and how this pain has developed into something that goes beyond their own life. It becomes universal. Throughout the years, I've heard, I've read in the newspaper, I've seen it in some cases, death. Violent death, which is something that strikes me as something that shouldn't ever happen, and it's a very violent thing, and it's a very disturbing situation. And I have been afraid of it. I've never really wanted to deal with it. It has been until now that I was able to actually face it for once and try to say, well, maybe I need to deal with it. We may have rights, we may have constitutions, we may have laws, but these laws mean nothing unless we as people come out and grab them and direct them towards our own benefits. My intent was not to make a film in favor or against a political government. It was made to show that no matter what governments are around, are people who are struggling to make their voices heard. The story itself usually guides you, hopefully it guides you. This requires a lot of intimacy, a lot of conversations, a lot of trust. Not only trust me, but they have to also understand what is it that I'm trying to do. What is it that we are trying to do, because this is a process between the two of us. My story will not die. It will be in the memory of my son. It will be in the memory of the kids that die in La Guajira. It will be for the future, for other people to understand about what it is social injustice and how you can participate in it. There is fear of the unknown. There is fear of the political system. There are fears of many things, but the strength comes from within. And we never see these characters, these heroes, in my opinion, that come out and tell and try to find their own ways to get justice. And in these three stories, each story has a different pursuit of justice. Each person has a different way of approaching this situation. And hopefully, the justice system eventually will come back and say, and give them the rights that they deserve. But even if that doesn't happen, the most important things that I see with these stories is that they show strength. They show that this is possible, that history and politics and our destiny at the end is in our own hands. A Question of Justice is it's a film that took me back to my origins as a filmmaker, because it gives you back your whole craft. It's a craft that is an individual craft. It's a craft that is very personal. Not just as a story, because it's not an entertaining film. It's a film that has a lot of pain. It's a film that maybe makes you cry. It's a film that gives you hope. And this hope is produced by the strength of humanity. I mean, the strength that we all have inside ourselves, and that we should continue freshen it up. We should continue bringing it out. We should continue discovering it and never let it die. I think we all have our own fears. We all have our own needs. Some of them are not completely developed. Some of them we don't even know where they come from. But it is a search. I think in making my films, I am learning. Every time I make a film, I learned about myself. Not only about the people that I document or that participate in the process, but I learn about myself. I learn about my fears. I learn about who I am. I learn about the weaknesses that I may have, about the good things that I may have. And this is a continuous process. I think it's not ending. I think it has to do with what I really want to achieve out of that. And for me, the most important is to get in touch with other souls, to get in touch with other kind of energies. It doesn't matter what social system we live in, what kind of social class we are in. And even though we might have a system that supports us, we can never fall asleep. This is, I think, is something that I have learned, and I see it in the people that I portray, and that's what they have taught me. You have to get in your hands your future.